My name is Aileen Ball. I am one of the co-presidents of Justice Matters, and I am a member at First United Methodist Church of Lawrence. Now, before we begin tonight, I would like to briefly mention the technology we're using to make this meeting possible. Now, I know all of us at this point have probably some familiarity with joining meetings in Zoom, and in those meetings, you can see everybody on the screen, and that's really cool. But the difference with tonight's event is that we're using Zoom webinar to host the event, which is a format that means you can only see the presenters, not the participants. So don't worry, you're not doing anything wrong. Don't be surprised if things look and feel a little different than you might be accustomed to on Zoom. You're doing fine. So I also want to acknowledge that tonight's event has a lot of moving parts. Whether it's bringing presenters onto the screen, broadcasting videos, sending out polls for voting, making sure videos and mics are on. We really don't anticipate any technical issues, but we kindly ask you for your grace if we do encounter any problems. Just know that we will resolve them as quickly as we can. I also want to offer a special word of thanks to the Justice Matters staff who are running all of this technology behind the scenes to make sure that we have a really special evening together. And now it is my pleasure to welcome the Reverend Kay Scarborough, Senior Pastor of First United Methodist Church, to offer our opening prayer.
It is really good to gather with so many voices and traditions to work for justice in this community. And I do come from the United Methodist Christian tradition, and I invite you to join me in prayer in whatever your tradition is. So let us pray. Holy One, who is known by many names and is yet beyond all names, who is known in many ways and is yet beyond our knowing, as we gather together on this evening as people of many faiths and traditions, as people of many ages and cultures and political persuasions, as friends and neighbors and even strangers, we celebrate this rainbow of human beings who are united by our desire and passion for justice. For justice does indeed matter, and it is time for us to do something about the hurt and pain in our world. So, Holy One, shelter us, we pray, when the winds of indifference, divisiveness, and narrow self-interest howl in the night, chilling our hearts and rattling the windows of our souls. Fill us with new hope and strength when despair and the enormity of the struggles start to overwhelm us, so that we can face each moment with a new breath and accomplish the movement to which we are called and committed. Grant us, we pray, the courage to stand up and speak out against all oppression and discrimination in whatever forms they may present themselves, and the courage to reclaim in this day and time the mantle of prophets who throughout the ages have spoken truth to power and called those with power and privilege to honor, respect, protect, and care for the least of those among us, the poor, the homeless, the hungry, the sick, the broken, and the forgotten in our community. Grant, too, the wisdom to speak our truth and to take our actions in love, drawing persons together rather than pushing them apart. So guide our conversation, that it may reach the right issues and make the right differences to bring healing and wholeness to our part of the world. Together we pray in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, good and true. May it be so. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Reverend Scarborough. And now we will be blessed to receive a musical offering from Vincent Otry of 9th Street Missionary Baptist Church.
Through hard times and trying situations, we sometimes wonder what is next. What can I do? Why is life so hard? And when, if ever, will there be justice in this land? What do you do in the meantime, in between the hard work and the struggles for justice? This is what I have learned to do.
That was a truly beautiful song, and I want to offer many thanks to Vincent for sharing it with us. I'd also like to take just a moment to give you a quick overview of our agenda for this evening, just so you kind of know where we're heading. So first, we want to take care of some important business, such as giving those of us who have joined us tonight who haven't yet officially joined Justice Matters as a network member, we want to give you the opportunity to do that. And then we're going to move into the election of our new officers. And then following that, I will offer a brief reflection on the theme of moving from despair to hope through action. Then we'll take a closer look at the issues that Justice Matters has been working on and affirm our commitment as an organization to these issues going forward. And then you'll have an opportunity to learn about an exciting matching grant that new investors in Justice Matters tonight can help us attain. And finally, you'll learn more about how you can become more involved in this work going forward. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Reverend Eric Galbraith, who will be speaking with us about how to join Justice Matters if you haven't already done so.
Good evening. My name is Eric Galbraith, and I'm the pastor of the 9th Street Missionary Baptist Church here in Lawrence, Kansas. And I want to join you this evening to share about the importance of coming together in our congregations and community through justice ministry networks. Some of you may already be network members, but for many of you, this could be your first experience joining a meeting with Justice Matters. And I wanted to share about how to get more involved. And I believe it's important for us to come together for justice because justice is commanded by God. God tells us to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. God doesn't ask us to do justice. He commands us, he expects us to do justice because he has a love and concern for all people. So therefore, it's important to be involved in justice because it's a God thing. It starts with conviction. And if our convictions are the same, and we have conviction about God's desire and love for people, for all people, then we should have the same conviction as well. And when all of us have the same conviction to honor God, to please God, to reverence God, through engaging in justice, then it's important that we're unified on one accord, on one front. Because in order to make the changes, in order to bring the justice that is needed in Douglas County and Lawrence, Kansas, we have to be united. It takes people power. It takes collective power to make this happen. So if we come together collectively unified with our conviction that God expects justice and desires justice here in Lawrence, Kansas, we can do great things. We can go upstream and we can attack the problems in the heart of the issues that reside in our community. We can go upstream with collective power and we can hold leadership accountable. We can hold power accountable and letting them know that God expects just laws and just ordinances in this community. But we must understand that in that conviction, in that unified effort, in that people power, we have to understand the importance of commitment because nothing comes easy. There will always be opposition. And as they say that life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Doing justice is not a sprint, it's a marathon. There will be challenges, there will be hurdles, there will be obstacles. But if we remain resilient, if we remain committed, and we come together and we stay united, regardless of what comes our way, we can and we will bring justice to Lawrence, Kansas. Because of our resilience, because of commitment, because of the conviction and unity of our justice ministry the past 4 years, we've been able to accomplish great things. We want to thank all of those who have understood conviction, who have understood unity and understand commitment, because that's what it has taken to get where we are today. And with you joining the team, with you being a part of this, in your convictions and this unified effort and your commitment, we can continue to do great things here in Lawrence, Kansas. See, it's now more than ever. It's vital that we come together and build justice in Lawrence. We will join together in a great assembly in the spring to act on the justice issues that we'll be discussing this evening, such as restorative practices in our schools, ending homelessness, and criminal justice reform. And I want your help to organize this assembly by becoming a part of your congregation's justice ministry. Network members do 3 things. The first thing they do is bring at least 3 people to the Nehemiah Action, which will be held on Monday, May 3rd. And it is the key to getting public officials to act on some of the most important issues in our community. The second thing is to attend 3 citywide assemblies throughout the year. The first one is the Community Problems Assembly, so you already have one down. And the third is to consider investing $200 to keep the ministry strong and ongoing. There are other opportunities to get involved as well, such as joining a research committee. But joining the Justice Ministry Network is just one of the best ways you can begin in joining together to make Lawrence a more joyful, equitable, and just community for everyone. And as I have mentioned before, some of you might already be part of the Justice Ministry Network. However, if you haven't joined yet and you would like to be a part of it, please respond to the poll question that will pop up on your screen shortly. And an organizer or a member of your congregation will be contacting you with the next steps. I hope you will join me in building justice here in Lawrence. God bless you.
Excellent. What a great message. So just as Eric said, and I see it on my screen, so I imagine you do too, there's a poll on your screen that you should complete. It asks if you didn't attend a house meeting and you'd like to become a Justice Ministry Network member, please let us know below. So go ahead and answer that poll. And as Eric said, someone will be back in touch with you with important next steps. It's important to join the Justice Ministry tonight in order for you to vote on a few key items that are going to come before us. So in a few moments, when this poll closes, we're going to take we're going to pivot, that's the word. We're going to pivot over to our election of new officers. So we'll hold on for just a moment for that. Very good.
Hey everybody, my name is Brent Hoffman. I've served as your co-president alongside Aileen Ball during this past year. I'm a member of Morning Star Church and a leader with the Jail Alternatives Action Committee. Tonight I'm proud to present the nominees for executive leadership to serve in this coming 2020-2021 year. Before I do, I'd like to thank the outgoing executive officers for their leadership this past year. I want to thank Aileen, first of all, for her tireless service to this justice ministry as co-president. It's been a joy to work with her, and the good news is, as you'll find out soon, she'll be staying on this executive committee should you approve her in a moment. Also, Pat Lechtenberg, for her patient eagle eye on the finances as treasurer of Justice Matters. Virgil Dean, who took near perfect minutes at every meeting. Pastor Ted Mosier, who's been on this executive committee for several years and has a lot going on as a pastor of Good Shepherd, but has been very impeccable in his attendance. Also, Rose Schmidt for staying on this year after her co-president role as an at-large member. And last but not least, my friend Ann Spangler from First United Methodist. I don't have enough time to really describe all the contributions each of these people have made to the success of this organization throughout the year. But I want you to know that our city is indebted to you folks for your leadership in all the ways that you've served. And I thank God for your heart and your spirit. As we turn to the coming year, I want you all to know that we've taken great care in selecting who will serve in leadership. And we believe we have a great pool of talent to lead us into the next year. This group has been nominated. They've accepted our request. The board and team leaders from each of your churches have had the opportunity to review their nomination, and they received unanimous approval. You should have received their bios from your team leaders or in an email earlier today from Ben. And I will now ask our tech person to bring them onto the screen as I briefly introduce them to you. If you're a registered network member, our bylaws permit you to vote, which we will do in a moment, as one full slate of candidates. Nominated to serve as our new co-presidents are pastors Deacon Godsey from Vintage Church and Justin Jenkin from Velocity Church. As co-presidents, Ryan Hickman, a minister from Called to Greatness and a member of my church at Morning Star, will serve alongside Randy Weinkoff, who retired last year as pastor of Emmanuel Lutheran Church, where he remains a member. Aileen Ball, who just is stepping down from co-president, has been nominated and agreed to provide continuity and leadership to the executive committee in the role of corresponding secretary. And Ruth Entwistle, a leader in the Franciscan Third Order and member at St. John's Catholic Church, has been nominated to serve as the recording secretary. Nominated for treasurer is Mr. Milton Scott from 9th Street Missionary Baptist Church, where he's been a strong leader on the executive board of 9th Street's Outreach Center. And 2 people have been nominated to serve as at-large members of the executive committee. First, there's Ann Hostler from Emmanuel Lutheran Church, and then Chelsea Larson from Trinity Lutheran Church. Thank you, nominees, for accepting this responsibility. Camille will now move them from the panel so that we can move on. And now that these candidates have been approved by the board and team leaders, bios have been shared, and final introductions have been made, I ask that our tech people please bring up the poll so that we can vote on this full slate of candidates. And so that everybody's aware, the poll will be open for approximately 1 minute. If you're wondering whether to vote or not, I invite you to do so as long as you've agreed to be part of the Justice Network, either at a house meeting this fall or moments ago following Eric Galbraith's invitation. Go ahead and vote now. As soon as all the votes are in, we will get immediate results. We just need a few more votes. So if you stepped away from your computer, please come back and vote on this slate of candidates. It looks like it passed. For the record, the slate of candidates has been approved and the votes cast will be recorded and kept in our files by our new recording secretary, Ruth Entwistle. I'll now turn it over to our corresponding secretary, Aileen Ball. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you so much for your kind words. It has been a pleasure to serve alongside you, and I'm excited to enter into my new role. So now it is my turn to speak with you about our theme for this evening, which is replacing despair with hope in action. So I'm going to share my screen so that I can show you a few slides as I speak to you. So a long time ago, I used to study Latin language. And looking at the theme of tonight's meeting, replacing despair with hope in action, I thought back to that word in Latin for despair, which is despero, desperare, means to despair. But in Latin, the root word for hope is right there inside the word for despair. See it right there in the middle? Spare, that's the root for hope. And when you look at the word to despair, all you have to do is locate the hope, uncover it, and you find it sitting right there in the midst of despair. In fact, you can't make the word for despair without the word for hope. The two are inextricably linked. So spero, sperare, to hope. And so it's fitting that the work of Justice Matters originates in despair. Really, it originates in the despair that the vulnerable in our community feel because it seems like change will never come. The despair that we all feel from the magnitude of the problems that this community faces. Justice Matters always starts with the despair. And through our collective efforts, through our action, we uncover the hope. And with perseverance and resilience and grit and determination, all rooted in our faith and shared values, we change this community for the better. So 6 years ago, when this whole thing started, the change that we have led, honestly, it didn't seem possible. It didn't seem possible that we would secure dedicated money in a trust fund to build permanent affordable housing. It didn't seem possible to vote on a mental health care crisis center alone on a ballot. And it didn't seem possible that we could stop a jail expansion that all the county commissioners had already voted to fund. In the midst of despair, none of that seemed possible. But through our organizing, through our collective voice, speaking up and speaking out to those with power, we changed this community. We located the hope inside of despair. And so as we enter our 7th year, we know about starting in despair, and we're not intimidated by it. But as we start to dream of a better future for Lawrence and Douglas County, as we articulate that dream and explore it with community partners and local leaders, we start to hear that familiar litany of things that cannot be done, right? We heard this month that the idea of reducing homelessness is quaint, but actually eliminating homelessness, We were told we can't do that. Safely lowering the number of people we lock up through reforms and alternatives is a great idea, we heard, but eliminating the overcrowding at our jail, we can't do that. Getting teachers to go through restorative justice training is possible, but measuring and reporting on the results, we can't do that. That's what we heard, and I tell you, it's disheartening to hear from our leaders and hear that they're starting from a place of fatalism on these issues. And honestly, it's not just in our local leadership where this happens. Our faith groups often embrace the spirit of resignation and passive acceptance. So each year, Justice Matters gathers hundreds of people from our member faith groups and the community to speak in a unified voice to our local leaders. We call that assembly the Nehemiah Assembly. And in 2019, the last year that we could all gather safely together for our Nehemiah Assembly at the Lead Center, 15% of the people that we worship alongside together at our services during the week came out to show their support for justice. 15%, which means that the other 85% did something else instead. So 2 summers ago, the Board of Justice Matters committed to flipping that equation by the year 2025. That is to say, instead of 85% of our worshiping members staying home on the night of the Nehemiah Assembly as they did in 2019, in 2025, 85% will come to the Nehemiah Assembly to stand together, informed and organized for whatever justice issue we as a body discerns needs to be our priority for this city. So as a part of flipping this equation, right, we have created a graphic to chart both kind of the pace and the path to 85%. And we're using an image of climbing a mountain together. So in 2025, you'll see up at the very peak of that mountain, we are aiming for over 3,000 people at our Nehemiah Assembly. That is 85% of our average weekly worship attendance. And here at more at the bottom of the mountain, here in year 1, we are aiming for, at a bare minimum, 881 people at the Nehemiah Assembly, or 25% of our faith community's average weekly worship attendance. So are we on pace to meet our goal this year? Well, let's just take a quick look at where we currently stand. Typically, when we're together in person, we have a representative from all of our faith communities and from our neighborhood network to come up to the front of whatever room we're in and report out on what their Nehemiah Assembly goal is. We're not able to do that this year, but we wanted to give you a glance at what our Nehemiah attendance goals are for each congregation. So based on this fall's listening process and the number of folks who committed to be network members, it looks like we actually are on pace. What's on the screen right now are those goals from member congregations and affiliated groups. And you'll see that we are looking at 1,245 people at this year's Nehemiah Assembly. Now, I want to take a moment to assure you, because we're talking about these things that sound really scary these days, 1,000 people in a space all together. I want to be very clear. The format of our Nehemiah Assembly will be safe, given the pandemic. We don't know quite yet what that looks like. We don't know if it's virtual or outdoors or drive-in or indoors, but we are absolutely committed to hosting an event that allows you and those you love to safely raise your voice for justice. So with that said, yes, we are on pace for 1,245 people at the Nehemiah Assembly, and that is a great first step. It exceeds our first goal. But make no mistake, 1,245 doesn't just happen. It doesn't just happen. We only turn out 1,245 people if all of us attend all of the major Justice Matters events and bring at least 3 others with us to the Nehemiah Assembly in May. So I follow the Facebook postings of a man named Hugh Hollowell, and he's the community pastor at the Open Door Mennonite Church in Jackson, Mississippi. He frequently posts about issues around justice and poverty. And back in September, he had a post about the origins of Labor Day. and how that holiday itself was born out of collective action of the people. And the closing of his post went like this. He said, "In the world as it ought to be, people would get what they deserve. But in the world as it is, you only get what you organize for." It's a stark statement, but it's true. There shouldn't be any despair in this world, but in the world as it is, we only reveal the hope through our organized action. We get what we organize for. And organizing is what transforms the litany of things we cannot do into a litany of hope, where we aim not to just manage homelessness, but we are organizing to eliminate it, where we do not simply want new programs at the jail, but we are organizing to end overcrowding through reforms and alternatives. We know restorative justice training has taken place, but we are organizing for a culture shift that reduces minority suspensions and improves learning. And the same standards and accountability to which we hold our external systems and local leaders, we will apply to ourselves as we build the justice networks we need to transform our congregations. In other words, with God's awesome power, we will replace the spirit of despair that pervades our community and our congregations with hope in action, one step at a time. And now it is my pleasure to move us along to a time in the evening where we get to hear some powerful testimonies and updates about the issues that Justice Matters is working on right now. We will hear from Nora Gerami, a student at Free State High School, who will speak to the need for restorative practices in schools. We'll hear from John Krehbiehl as he contrasts the current chronic homelessness issue here in Lawrence with what could be by taking a look at Rockford, Illinois' approach to ending homelessness. And finally, Reverend Joanna Heriter and the Jail Alternatives Committee will give you some insight into their work. And we look forward to welcoming District Attorney candidate Suzanne Valdez and Sheriff candidate Jay Armbrister to address our group here tonight. So let us turn our attention now to Nora. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nora. I am a senior at Free State this year, and I'm part of the Restorative Justice Committee for Justice Matters. I think that restorative justice is very important, especially in high schools, because at least going to Free State, which is a majority white school, majority of the time we see students of color, specifically Black students, being the ones who are reprimanded or face more critical punishments, even for the smallest things. For example, we had a group of white students on their Snapchat story under the influence who drew a swastika and wrote the N-word underneath of it. They had 1 week of out-of-school suspension and 1 week of in-school suspension. On the flip side of that, you'll see a student get into a lunchroom fight. It's bound to happen. It's high school. And if it's a Black student, you'll see them get 2-3 weeks of in-school suspension. I even remember a story of a kid who was passing me in the hallway. His speaker was playing too loud. He just blasted his music, and he got a few weeks of in-school suspension. Then you'll also see, I saw a white kid, kick and shove a student down in the gym hallway and literally kick them on the ground. Teacher standing there, the kid didn't face any punishment at all. So we see that a lot, not only in our high schools, but in our community as a whole. And I think if we want to act on injustice and criminal reform and things like that, it needs to start at our schools. Because if we are treating students like that from the beginning, it's just going to continue on as we get older. You'll have the white kids who want to go into law enforcement or things like that who end up acting the same way that their school administrators did. And if we want overall change, we need to start here. Another thing is our school police officers, our SROs, are all white. Not only do they make all students uncomfortable, like me, myself, I'm a good student, but just even having them there makes me feel uncomfortable, but specifically students of color, because every time that I have seen an SRO act out or suspend a kid or even arrest a kid, they've all been Black students. On the flip side of that, we have 2 super awesome Black security officers who their whole goal is to try and do what we're doing with restorative justice, which is to talk to specifically a lot of these Black students, and instead of immediately punishing them, they're telling of them what they did was wrong and talking about why it was wrong and things like that. And a lot of the time you'll see those students learn from their mistakes and not just fall into that cycle of getting suspended every other week. I think it's really important that we start implementing that more, because I don't think 2 security officers can fulfill the role of all the administrators at a 2,000 kid school, and especially not all over the district. We have a completely other high school which has more students than Free State does, and even starting out with younger students from elementary school, you'll see that students of color are getting punished way more than their white friends or anything like that. And it's something that just kind of needs to be stopped at the root and at the base, instead of letting it grow to the point where we see more of them going to jail or prison or things like that. And instead just taking action and starting the reform that we want in our community at our schools.
Good evening. My name is John Krehbiehl with First United Methodist Church here in Lawrence. I serve on the Justice Matters Steering Committee for Homelessness. Recently, we went back to some of the campsites and visited some of the folks that are living in those campsites in East Lawrence, so that tonight we could show you just a few pictures and give you a little bit better idea of what is going on right now with homelessness in our own community. You know, we realize that by sharing these photos with you tonight, it could in fact feed feelings of despair. What you'll see next, however, will, I believe, shift those feelings from despair to feelings of hope. There are cities, there are communities just like ours that have ended chronic homelessness. Communities like Rockford, Illinois. Take a look.
When I first started doing this job, I really only conducted outreach if it was the point in time count of the homeless, or if somebody called. It was at the point of they wanted to go to a camp and dismantle it. So they called us along to kind of come try to counsel the folks on where they could go from there. We would tell them what services were available at our agency, and maybe refer them to the shelter or something like that, but we never really followed up. Anybody back here? I saw the camps and I saw the way that people lived, and it got to me.
Javier, I'm Angie. So how long have you been staying out here?
Just remember that they're people, and I'm out there to help people because I don't think people deserve to live under bridges. I just don't think that's okay.
So we can help you to get a place of your own.
Everything changed when we started coordinating entry and the Built for Zero initiative. Now we do continual, ongoing outreach.
Brittany and I, we work to help people get housing. Is that something you would be interested in?
No.
No? Okay. Can I at least leave you my card?
So if I tell somebody to come see me and they don't come see me, that's okay, because I'm going to go find them next week and we're going to do the same thing again. When we started doing Built for Zero, we were looking to get people out of homelessness and into permanent housing. So really when we started this, everything had to shift. You have to have somebody leading the efforts that isn't afraid to step on some toes. Because if you just sit back and let everything remain how it is, it's never going to change. So when we signed up to do this, we knew we were going to do it. There wasn't any other option for us.
I had nowhere to go. I've been down the street for 15 years. Finally, I got an apartment in Walker. Because of her, I'm here, bro.
How did she exactly do that? How did you?
She's got a big mouth.
Social workers are a different breed. Every time you get a homeless person off the street, you've literally changed their life. Maybe you've saved their life. I do love what I do. Most days, anyway.
So as we entered 2020, our city and our county commissioners made the decision that Douglas County would also, just like Rockford, Illinois, adopt the Built for Zero initiative. And then came the pandemic. Would this pandemic change that? Would this pandemic stifle, perhaps even stop, the momentum that we felt we had gained? To be honest, we weren't sure. So we called Angie.
When we had joined Built for Zero back in 2014, 15, we also had joined on to the Mayor's Challenge to end veteran homelessness as well. So we began with veterans. There were a lot more than what we thought when we initially started, but we were able to get down to functional zero by the end of 2015 for veterans. After that, we moved on to chronic. So for us, chronic definitely was with the federal guidelines. So somebody who had been homeless more than a year straight, or 4 episodes of homelessness within 3 years that added up to 12 months, and they have a disability. But then we realized we had these other populations. So we did break it down between families with children, single adult households, and then I'm missing somebody. Homeless youth. So that's anybody 16 to 24, and it can be single youth or it can be youth with children of their own. Like I mentioned, our goal was to end youth homelessness by the end of last year, and our actual overall goal was to end all homelessness by the end of 2020. And then COVID hit. So we are plugging away as quickly as possible. We are still, my boss is still pushing the goal to end it by the end of 2020, but I don't think there's any way humanly possible. But I'm shooting for the middle of next year.
Yes, you heard her right. End all forms of homelessness by next year. You know, right now our city is thinking about next winter, which is necessary for people's survival. But there's also a push, and it's a big push, to end homelessness right here in Douglas County altogether. To end homelessness right here in Douglas County in its entirety. Justice Matters intends to use our people power to make that push more than hope, to make that push more than wishful thinking. We intend to make that push, and we intend to make ending homelessness a reality. And I think we will. I think we will because, as Angie Walker said it so well, when she saw those camps with her own eyes, when she saw those tents and the people living under underpasses and bridges, and when she saw with her own eyes the people living in those shacks, she said, you know what? People living like that is just not right. And you know what? People living like that in Douglas County, and there are many right now, my friends, there are many, is just not right.
So that was just a small sampling of the work ahead for us in restorative practices and homelessness. I want to thank Nora and John for their powerful testimonials. And now it is my pleasure to welcome onto the screen Reverend Joanna Heriter and other members of our Jail Alternatives Research Committee, who will speak to you about the work that's happening in their area. So welcome, Joanna.
Thank you. It's good to be with everyone tonight. I miss seeing all of your faces, but I am imagining them out there. My name is Joanna Heriter. I am a part of the steering committee for the Jail Alternatives Research Team for Justice Matters.
And my name is Kirsten Kuhn. We're both on the Criminal Justice Jail Alternatives Action Committee, and we're going to be leading this portion of our agenda. In a moment, we will be joined by Professor Suzanne Valdez, who is the only candidate on the ballot running for district attorney, as well as Lieutenant J. Armbrister, who is the only candidate on the ballot for sheriff. They are both running unopposed, so it's safe to say that they will serve in these positions in the new year. So we asked them here tonight to share their views in general, and specifically to the offer from the Vera Institute to help us analyze our system in search of a safe way to reduce the number of people we lock up in jail. This will be the third time we've discussed working with Vera with each of them. The first was earlier this year during our candidate forums leading up to the primary. At that time, Professor Valdez committed to work with us. Sheriff candidate Lieutenant Armbrister said he was open to the idea, but did have some reasonable questions. Last week, we sat down with them along, again, with staff from Vera to discuss the opportunity to work together on the problem of overcrowding at our jail. Before our tech person pulls them into the virtual panel, though, we did want to refresh your memory about the jail and tell you a little bit about the opportunity the Vera Institute for Justice has offered. You may remember the Board of County Commissioners voted unanimously to expand the jail in January this year, but Justice Matters delayed construction by asking court to give citizens the right to weigh in on this decision. But a month later, COVID hit, and the system emptied the jail overnight without jeopardizing public safety. This led county commissioners to openly rethink the need for expansion. Then during the primary election in August, every successful candidate ran on a platform committed to criminal justice reform and alternatives, and not a bigger jail. This led to a complete reversal among the same county commission that voted unanimously to approve the jail in January. Now, with the discussion of the jail off the table, we believe the opportunity for criminal justice reform appears to be at an all-time high. As part of our call for local criminal justice reform, oh, I lost my face, sorry guys. We have been advocating to understand what's driving the overcrowding at the jail, and that's where Vera comes in. So if the tech person could share our slides, if you would. When we talk about analysis, we are specifically talking about what happens here in Douglas County, from the time you're arrested to the time that you're booked into the jail, a trial is scheduled, etc. Because each of those contact points influence who is in the jail and how long they remain there. And sometimes people get stuck in jail for no good reason, leading to overcrowding. So Vera has offered us two specific tools to help us understand our system. One, an analysis into safe jail reduction strategies. And the second is a citizen dashboard that allows us to keep track of our progress. So for the first tool on the second slide, which is an overall analysis, you can see Oklahoma City here. These are a series of ways that they safely reduce the jail population and a projected number of jail stays that could be eliminated. So for example, if they handled their petty municipal crimes differently, they projected a decrease in 42 people every day. If they improved lag times of folks waiting for trial, they could reduce daily jail population by 532 people. So the list goes on. But in total, they found ways to reduce the jail population by up to 1,662 fewer people every day, just by making improvements to the local system. We are not suggesting that the same results can be found in Douglas County, but the point is, through data analysis, Vera has helped local communities prevent people from being unnecessarily stuck in the criminal justice system. In addition to analysis, Vera has developed tools for every day to just track the progress in real time. They call them citizen dashboards. One particular dashboard we liked and did view with DA-elect Valdez and Sheriff-elect Armbrister was the one Vera built in Salt Lake City. At a glance, the information is updated in real time, gives citizens a clear sense of who is in jail and why. This kind of transparency leads to accountability and improvement in our system. When we sat down last week with Vera, Professor Valdez, and Lieutenant Armbrister, we had a very informative meeting. We did find out that from Vera that they've done this sort of thing for jurisdictions across the country, and sharing data with Vera might require a little work, but it is not insurmountable. We also learned that Vera has developed tools to hook up to the data entry systems at the sheriff's office that they already use. We think that this partnership would be a change maker in terms of addressing overcrowding at our jail. What it will require is leadership, cooperation, and data.
And so that is why we've invited our presumptive sheriff-elect Armbrister and DA-elect Valdez to be here with us tonight. We're really grateful to be able to begin these conversations with them already about ways that we can work together to help find alternatives to incarceration and decrease our jail population here in Douglas County. And they have both agreed to join us tonight and to speak both to the idea of how they feel about working with Vera towards these goals, and also have an opportunity to share other ideas that they have related to criminal justice reform when they take office next year. So we would invite Professor Valdez on. Thank you so very much for being here. And yeah, I invite you to just take 2 to 3 minutes and share with us your thoughts about Vera's proposal that you heard. And I know you have some other exciting ideas about criminal justice reform in Douglas County in the year to come.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I wanted to thank you all for your work in this space, for trying to do some great work on behalf of our community. It does take all of us to work together to ensure our safety and certainly fairness and equity and all those things as well. And I am already, I know I'm I still have to get through November 3rd, but I've been working hard since the primary election to work with folks and reach out to the community and start kind of getting a sense of what people want for reform and sort of guide what we're going to be doing in our office. Just some quick updated info. We are going to be very much focused on alternative programs. That's something I promised in my campaign. These include, of course, restorative justice. It was great to hear Nora talk about that in high school, so we really want to build on that. Certainly robust diversion and pretrial release programs so that we keep people out of jail, especially low-level nonviolent offenders, and those people can be home, they can be with their families and in the community and working and all those things that are good for our community. So that's going to be a priority, and I have a senior deputy who will be in charge of that, Josh Seiden, and then of course we'll have another senior deputy who will be in charge of trials and administration. So those serious violent crimes that we need to handle and address and hold people accountable for, we'll have that structure as well. In terms of the transparency and accountability, you know, that's one of the reasons I ran as well. For this office, we need to have public officials who are accountable to the public. I believe this job is the people's job, and I'm going to do what I can to make sure that all the information that comes from my office is clear, transparent, and fair. So there's lots of opportunity for my office. In terms of having access to information, I just don't right now. The current district attorney is still the DA, and so I don't have access to the office, unlike Lieutenant Armbrister, who's in the Sheriff's Department. I just don't have access to that. So I'm hearing what's being said here about doing various studies, and certainly that does, of course, fit well with my efforts to try to ensure that we have accountability, we keep the jail from expanding. We got it done, you know, certainly this last month or so, but we got to make sure that we keep numbers low and we keep people safe in the jail, because that is their constitutional right to have a safe space. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jay. I think he has more to say on this. I just don't have enough information in terms of the data, but I do know I believe that even Mr. Branson had said he had turned over the data that came from his office. And I'm willing to do that to make sure that we are transparent. But that's all I can really say at this point.
Thank you very much. And yeah, Lieutenant Armbrister, the same question to you in terms of your thoughts on the Sheriff's Office being able to work with Vera to provide the data and the transparency there, and also if you have other initiatives, things you're looking forward to that you'd like to share with this group, I invite you to do that 2 to 3 minutes to share those thoughts with us.
Thank you. Again, and like Professor Valdez said, thank you very much for having me. So I've worked for the Sheriff's Office my entire life. I worked when the current facility was opened in September 11th of '99. I was working in the facility on that day. So I have a pretty intimate knowledge of how things operate in there, and I want the same things that everybody within your organization wants. Is I want the jail population to go to zero. I don't believe that's a possibility, and I would love to be proved wrong. So when it comes to the Vera study, I've always been very open to it because I think from the perspective of the Sheriff's Office, I'm so deeply proud of the things that McGovern, the programs that we've done, that we, as a Sheriff's Office, it's just nearly unheard of for these things to these reentry programs and become nationally, I mean, just known all over the country for the programs that we started, because the jail population was increasing and nobody seemed to be doing anything about it. So we felt like we had to kind of take it on our own and create some to lower the recidivism. Obviously, it still spiked and got away from us, but I was just looking on pretrial release today. We have 208 people out of jail that would have been. So I think they've done a lot of really good hard work. I feel like the current programs are kind of hitting their stride. And so I would like to see new programs as well as an expansion of the current programs. So that's where, when it comes to the Vera, I'm very much on board with it, but I have to be completely upfront is that there's going to be some logistical, unique characteristics to our information system. Just simply the way that our information system is built is going to create some roadblocks and hurdles that we're going to have to figure a way around. And I'm willing to do the work, and I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses for this not ever working out. I do believe it will work out. It's just going to take time. So I'm just basically asking for your patience and your grace on this. What I'll say is that when I'm in our office on January 12th, I've made no promises to anybody. I've got no hidden agendas. I have nothing that I feel like I have to do to pay anybody back, because I ran my campaign out of my own pocket, and I'm very proud of how we did it. So we have an opportunity to stop the system in its tracks and start it all over in a new direction. And Professor Valdez and I have had extensive conversations about how excited we are to have the opportunity to just basically overhaul, or at least look over every bit and piece of the system, and to see if it's actually working in everybody's best interest. And if it is, we'll make it better. And if it's not, maybe we ought to find an alternative or just quit it. So I think we were at a good place in time, but again, I'm asking for your patience. Just understand that I'm trying to do the best I can, and we'll get through it together. So I yield back my time.
Thank you so much. I think in these Zoom full COVID days, we all have increasing understanding about technical difficulties that can come. I was encouraged in our conversation with Vera to hear their experience in working with a lot of different systems. And so I'm confident that with cooperation from the Sheriff's Office, you and them together will be able to figure out a way to make that work. I appreciate your willingness to do the work that's needed. Appreciate Vera's willingness to come in and help us understand our system better and give us the tools we need to make those positive changes. Probably what I've learned the most in the work that I've done with the Jail Alternatives Committee is that it's really about the system. There's not one person, there's not one magic policy that's going to fix everything, but it's exciting to me to know that we're going into the next year with leadership at different points in the system that are excited to be working together to make our community better. So I thank you for your commitment, for what you've shared with us tonight, and for giving some of your time to this group. Thank you very much.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Joanna and Kirsten, and thank you especially to Suzanne Valdez and Jane Armbrister. As Joanna said, it's wonderful to begin these conversations. Did you have more you want to speak to us about this evening, Joanna and Kirsten? Nope. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't stepping on your time. Very good. So that's incredibly exciting to hear, and we are really galvanized by the conversation that we just got to witness. So I think we can all agree that these are critical issues and we must work to continue addressing them. So therefore, the Board of Justice Matters is recommending to you tonight that our work this year as an organization be on these three problems: restorative justice in schools, chronic homelessness, and criminal justice reform. And that our work will have a particular focus on the issues of racial justice inherent in all of those issues. I also want to note that we currently have two other research teams that are actively monitoring the issues of affordable housing and mental health in our community. Their work is ongoing and it's critical to the health of this community. And therefore, the board recommends that that work also continue. So momentarily, you will see a poll on your screen, which will allow you to vote on whether Justice Matters should continue its focus in those areas, those 5 areas that I named. It should be on your screen now. I encourage you to participate in this vote. Give it about 1 moment, 1 minute. We're looking for 40 more votes, so go ahead and participate in the ballot now, please. Very almost to 85%. Okay, now you see the results of that on your screen. You'll see that 94% voted, in fact, yes, that Justice Matters ought to continue focusing on the priorities that we've been working on: criminal justice reform, chronic homelessness, restorative justice in school, as active campaigns while actively monitoring affordable housing and mental health. So that's very good.